So, you think living in the Star Wars galaxy would be fun? Well, not so fast. The galaxy is massive, and for every paradise, there's a nightmare planet that'll chew you up, spit you out, and then throw you into a Sarlacc pit for fun. From sunny safe havens to worlds that make Tatooine look like a resort, we're ranking major Star Wars planets from, hey, I could live there, to burn it from orbit. Exegol, introduced in The Rise of Skywalker, is basically what happens when a lightning storm and a doomsday cult decide to cohabitate. Hidden deep in the unknown regions, this Sith world is all jagged rock, pitch black skies, and non-stop blue lightning, like the galaxy's worst rave, but somehow slower and more depressing. There's no sunlight, no greenery, no animals, just dust, ancient statues and hooded cultists chanting in the dark. The surface is dry and lifeless, and the air itself seems hostile, like it resents you for existing. If you're not part of the Sith Eternal fan club, your odds of surviving are not high. The planet is filled with gigantic Sith citadels and underground labs full of creepy secrets and surprise star destroyers. In short, Exegol is less a planet and more a Sith-themed horror maze with no exit. Spiritually cursed, physically miserable, this place looks Korriban look cozy. Speaking of, Korriban, also known as Moribund in canon, is the ancient homeworld of the Sith. And it shows. The whole planet is one giant dusty red graveyard covered in tombs, ruins, and the lingering presence of 1,000 dead Sith Lords who are definitely not resting in peace. It's hot during the day, freezing at night, and completely lifeless outside of some aggressive lizard dogs and creepy desert bugs. There's no civilization to speak of, just ruins and crypts. So, if you like camping under a blood-red sky while being physically harassed by Sith ghosts, this might be your spot. Yoda once visited and got haunted by dark side apparitions. So, unless you're a Force-sensitive masochist or an archaeologist with a death wish, Korriban is not exactly welcoming. There's no food, no water, and no peace of mind. Living here is like moving into a cursed mausoleum in the middle of a desert. Technically possible, but deeply inadvisable. Mustafar is the textbook definition of a nightmare planet. Seen in Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, and more, it's basically one massive volcanic tantrum. Rivers of lava, constant eruptions, and ash falling like snow. If snow could set you on fire. The air? The air was scorching and probably toxic. The ground, either molten or about to be. Structures here are built on stilts over lava flows, which is not exactly confidence-inspiring. One shield failure and you're an instant barbecue. Vader built his castle here, which makes sense if you're powered by rage. No food, no native life to speak of, and the whole place pulses with dark side energy. Great for brooding, bad for literally anything else. Unless you're a Sith Lord with a lava fetish, Mustafar is one giant fiery do not enter sign. Bracca is basically one giant starship graveyard buried underneath the wreckage of the Clone Wars. As seen in Jedi Fallen Order and the Bad Batch, it's where Old Republic and Separatist ships go to rot, and where unlucky workers are sent to break them down. Run by the Scrapper Guild, Bracca offers the full package. Dangerous machinery, unstable platforms, surprise explosives, and industrial storms that turn everything into a slick metal slip and slide. Housing pretty much consists of shanties inside crashed ships, and air quality isn't great. Local wildlife? Giant junk monsters that would prefer you didn't make it to lunch. And after Order 66, the Empire rolled in and started using the planet to sniff out Jedi survivors because apparently the job wasn't stressful enough already. Sure, there's endless scrap to tinker with, but unless you're really into rust and risk, Bracca's about as livable as a broken droid in a rainstorm. Narkina 5, featured in Andor, is basically one giant ocean with an Imperial prison slapped in the middle of it. No visible land, just endless water and the occasional storm trying to kill you. So unless you're a really good swimmer with zero need for food or shelter, the planet itself is already a no-go. But the real fun starts inside the prison. This is the Empire's factory of misery, 12-hour work shifts, flavorless nutrient tubes for meals, and electrified floors that'll kill you if you step out of line. Literally. You're not living here, you're surviving. Barely. The whole setup is designed to break you down piece by piece until you either die or disappear. And even if you manage to escape, congratulations, you're now stuck in the middle of a freezing ocean with nowhere to go. So yeah, Narkina 5 isn't just unlivable, it's intentionally unlivable. Oppression with a view. Ilum wasn't just cold, it was sacred. Hidden in the icy heart of the unknown regions, this frozen world was the Jedi's most revered secret. Beneath its blizzards lay a crystalline core, rich in kyber, living gems that sang through the Force and powered Jedi lightsabers. For generations, younglings came here for the gathering, a rite of passage, but after Order 66, the songs went silent. The Empire arrived. They carved up Ilum for its crystals, ripping through its crust with fire and greed. Then came the First Order. They didn't just mine Ilum, they weaponized it. The Jedi's sanctuary became Starkiller Base, a planet killer. The place where lightsabers were born became the graveyard of the galaxy. And when Poe Dameron and the Resistance struck back, Ilum burned, then collapsed, becoming a newborn star. The Jedi's cradle became their crucible, and then a cosmic tomb. Dathomir is one of those planets that technically supports life, but you'd really wish it didn't. As seen in the Clone Wars and Jedi Fallen Order, it's a blood-red, mist-soaked nightmare of swamps, twisted forests, and a constant sense that something is watching you, and probably planning to eat you. Home to the Night Sisters and Night Brothers, Dathomir is drenched in dark side energy. If the Rancors don't get you, venomous insects or force spells probably will. The atmosphere is breathable, sure, there's water probably, but good luck finding shelter or safety. Unless you're born into the planet's eerie society of spell-wielding witches and warriors, you'll probably pray nothing more. Dathomir isn't unlivable in the way of, say, lava planets or prison moons, but surviving here feels more like joining a cursed forest survival game where the forest actively hates you. Perched in the mid-rim, this mountainous jungle-covered world is high altitude, high pressure, and high stakes. Life here is tough. Children are inoculated early, leaving a scar that marks them as survivors. The planet's history is written in blood. Marooned Jedi settlers, deadly rites of passage, and brutal warfare. During the Clone Wars, Depa Billaba led a doomed Republic defense here against General Grievous, losing almost everything. Later, the Empire wiped out a rebellion with a searing orbital bombardment that boiled oceans. Today, the forests are ash and whispers, but the Lummus trees are growing again. Harun Kal isn't cozy, but for those who endure it, survival is a badge of honor. Crate is one of those planets that looks cool from the outside, but once you get to know it a bit, you want to stay far away from. Beneath a layer of blinding white salt lies blood-red mineral earth, giving it a war-torn aesthetic. Remote and harsh, Crate hosted a rebel outpost before Scarif and was later reused by the Resistance as a last stand against the First Order. The planet has no cities, no real infrastructure, and no population, unless you count crystal foxes and leftover mining droids. The mines once held value, but now it's all rusted rails and bad memories. It's more battlefield than home. It's dry, windswept, and offers zero creature comforts. You'd only come here if you're on the run, planning a desperate stand or looking for abandoned rebel tech. Still, Crate earns points for drama. When the walkers come over the horizon, the place looks like a postcard from hell. Hoth is a textbook ice planet, with endless snow plains and frozen caverns. It's Antarctica with fewer amenities and more wampus. The air is breathable, but it's so cold that it hurts. Without shelter, you'll freeze solid in minutes. The Rebel Alliance managed to set up Echo Base here, briefly, before it got stomped by the Empire. That about sums up life on Hoth. Miserable, temporary, and probably ending in evacuation. There's no real food chain to speak of. You might try eating a tauntaun, assuming you can catch one before a wampa catches you. Infrastructure? None. Resources? Scarce. And comfort? That's pretty much zero. Unless you're equipped with thermal gear, backup power, and a strong tolerance for being snowed in forever, Hoth is more a survival challenge than an actual home. Breathable air keeps it slightly above total nightmare, but only just. Kessel is best known for two things: the infamous Kessel Run and being one of the most miserable rocks in the galaxy. Seen in Solo, Rebels, and heaps of media sources in the expanded universe, it's a barren mining world where spice is the prize and human life is an afterthought. The terrain is craggy, colourless, and about as inviting as a broken airlock. The atmosphere is so thin you'll need a breath mask to stay conscious unless you're hanging around one of the oxygen pumping factories. And even then, don't get too comfortable. Spice is mined deep underground by slaves or droids, depending on how charitable the operation is. Toxic gas pockets, cave-ins, and cruel overseers are standard. And in Legends, the mines are home to giant energy spiders. Canon or not, the vibe is bad. There's no nature, no safety, and no freedom. Just dust, tunnels, and the sound of someone yelling at you to dig faster. Unless you're a syndicate boss or you really like oppressive labor conditions, Kessel is firmly among the bottom of the rankings. Jeddah, sacred, windswept, and cold as a Sith's heart. This desert moon was a spiritual crossroads, a vergence in the Force, and a beacon for pilgrims from across the galaxy. The Jedi once called it home. So did the guardians of the wills, monks, mystics, and anyone looking for enlightenment or a place to disappear. But peace didn't last. The Empire came for its kyber crystals, chaining faith to fuel. Saw Gerrera's partisans struck back with fire, turning Jeddah into a powder keg. Then came the test. The Death Star fired, not at the moon but at its soul. The holy city vanished in green fire. Jeddah cracked, but never died. Rebel survivors returned. So did the Force. Even in ruins, the moon whispers to those who listen. A monument, a battlefield, a memory carved into sand and ash. Nal Hutta is the Hutt homeworld, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know. Once lush, it's now a swampy, polluted mess, choked with toxic fog, sludge pits, and the stench of centuries of unchecked decadence. The Hutts live large in their palaces, soaking in the filth like it's a luxury spa. For everyone else though, it's a slow-motion biohazard. Orbiting it is Nar Shaddaa, a moon-sized neon jungle of crime and corruption. Picture Coruscant if it was abandoned by the government and immediately taken over by smugglers, spy stealers, and bounty hunters. The infrastructure's there, bars, markets, even apartments, but so is the constant threat of getting robbed, shot, or dragged into a back alley deal that goes sideways. Sure, you may have breathable air, and basic survival is technically possible, but between the environmental toxicity of Nal Hutta and the lawless chaos of Nar Shaddaa, living here means trading fresh air and safety for grime and danger. Unless you're a Hutt, or you're armed, paranoid, and morally flexible, this is near the bottom of the list. Eriadu is the Tarkin homeworld, and boy, does it show. Picture a polluted, hyper-industrialized outer rim planet desperately trying to play into the big leagues of the core. Rich in Lomite ore and ambition, it built its name on shipping transparasteel and exporting authority. Under Wilhuff Tarkin, Eriadu evolved from a pirate-prone backwater into a militarized, politically influential stronghold. Basically the Empire's favorite Outer Rim success story. But that success came at a cost. Jungle turned to factory smoke, cities choked in poverty, and law became whatever the Tarkin name decreed. Iridians are known as hunters of wealth, power, or anyone who crosses them. It's dangerous, crowded, and teetering between proud legacy and authoritarian nightmare. Livability was rough. You might make a fortune, or you might get roasted in a sunbound shipping crate like the pirates Tarkin executed. It's not for the weak, but if you're ruthless, Eriadu will make room for you. Dagobah, best known as Yoda's retirement swamp, is about as primitive as it gets. Covered in thick fog, gnarled trees, and endless marshes, it's a place where everything is wet, muddy, and probably trying to bite you. There's no civilization, no tech, and no real infrastructure. Just snakes, slugs, and the occasional force-induced hallucination. It rains constantly, the bugs never stop, and you'll be sleeping in a damp cave unless you build something better with vines and hope. The air is breathable, and technically it's survivable. Yoda lived there for years, eating stew made of roots and swamp mystery, but unless you're a Jedi hermit with a high tolerance for solitude, this place is deeply uncomfortable. In short, Dagobah is livable in theory, but miserable in practice. A solid pick for hiding from the Empire, not so much for building a life. Ahch-To is a frigid, jagged ice world covered in glittering crystal towers and a whole lot of battlefield scars. It's cold, hostile, and strategically valuable, meaning it's been fought over more than most planets. During the Clone Wars, Ahch-To became a major battleground thanks to its kyber crystal reserves and its ties to the intergalactic banking clan. Ki-Adi-Mundi was gunned down here during Order 66, and that was just one in a long line of brutal campaigns. The planet stayed relevant under the Empire and into the Galactic Civil War, mostly as a place to fight more battles. The Lerman species once called it home before being pushed aside by corporate interests, and the surface is littered with wreckage from decades of war. Living on Ahch-To means ice, ruins, and a very high chance of orbital strikes. It's strikingly beautiful, but unless you're a hardened soldier or a scavenger, it's not where you'd want to unpack long term. Mapuzo used to be lush fields, greenery, all that pastoral charm. Obi-Wan even gets nostalgic about it, but by the time we see it in Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's a dusty, gutted shell of its former self. Thanks to some old-fashioned Imperial exploitation, the land's been strip-mined into oblivion. What's left are carved-up terraces, abandoned farms, and the sound of heavy machinery slowly grinding the ecosystem into dust. There's still breathable air, and technically, people live here, if you count underpaid laborers working under constant Imperial supervision as living. The settlements are small, bleak, and coated in a nice layer of mining dust. There was some hope in the form of Jedi safe houses run by the Path, but unless you're a fugitive Force user, that's not helping your day-to-day. Mapuzo isn't constantly deadly, but it's a depressing reminder that the Empire doesn't destroy planets with Death Stars alone. Sometimes they do it with paperwork and resource extraction. Bleak, broken, and barely hanging on. Kamino is a rain-soaked, ocean-covered planet in wild space, known almost entirely for one thing: clones. Home to the secretive, long-necked Kaminoans, this planet built the Republic's Grand Army in stilted, storm-battered cities like Tipoca City. It's isolated, perpetually stormy, and not exactly cozy, but it was vital during the Clone Wars, part military base, part genetic assembly line. For the clones, Kamino was home. For everyone else, it was business. After the Empire took over, things went downhill fast. With no more use for clone production, the Empire wiped out Kaminoan cities from orbit, erased the evidence, and called it a storm. The destruction of Tipoca City marked the end of an era and the literal sinking of a civilization. Kamino was never meant for long-term living. It was functional, clinical, and doomed the moment its purpose was served. Aleen is a rocky, desert-like mid-rim planet with a strange setup. The surface is home to the small, fast-talking Alina, while the bioluminescent Kindalo live below in a sealed-off, toxic underworld of glowing trees and ancient tunnels. The two species once went to war so disastrously that they agreed never to interact again, literally sealing the divide with a giant stone lid. Surface life is primitive but peaceful, with the Alina choosing simplicity over their ancient tech-heavy past. But when that peace is disrupted, say by earthquakes or accidental exposure to the thick underworld, things get weird fast. During the Clone Wars, the Republic had to intervene after a quake messed with the atmospheric balance and nearly collapsed both ecosystems. Aleen is livable if you don't mind ground quakes, deep lore, and the occasional bioluminescent tree spirit. It's quirky, remote, and definitely not built for comfort, but it has heart. Felucia is a vibrant jungle world in the Outer Rim, famous for its neon-colored flora, oversized fungi, and humid atmosphere. It's beautiful, sure, but it's also crawling with creatures that would love to trample, sting, or eat you. The native Felucians farm Nissalin, a valuable healing crop that made the planet a hot commodity during the Clone Wars. That, plus its location on the Polemian trade route, turned Felucia into a battlefield more times than it probably deserved. After the war, it was left pretty wrecked under Imperial oversight. Living here means constant moisture, dense foliage, and the risk of getting stepped on by a jungle anchor or eaten by an Acklay. It's fertile, wild, and visually stunning, but also chaotic and unpredictable. Felucia is livable if you're tough, resourceful, and okay with your backyard occasionally becoming a war zone. Geonosis, seen in Attack of the Clones, the Clone Wars, and Rebels, is where the Clone Wars kicked off, and where any dreams of a comfortable life go to die. It's a dry, rocky desert world full of spire formations, underground hive tunnels, and a whole lot of dust. The air's technically breathable, but not pleasant, and there's barely a drop of water in sight. During the war, it was all battle droids and weapons factories. After the war, the Empire wiped out the native Geonosians to keep Death Star secrets under wraps. So now, it's mostly empty and somehow even less welcoming. You could try living in one of the old hives, assuming you're okay with the constant threat of collapse, feral survivors, or stray droids still on kill intruders mode. Geonosis isn't unlivable by the numbers, but it's deeply uninviting by every other measure. It's a ghost town on hard mode. Mandalore has a legendary name and a long, violent history to match. Once the heart of the Mandalorian warrior culture, it's seen more wars, civil uprisings, and ideological flips than just about any planet in the galaxy. By the time of the Clone Wars, its surface was already a wreck, reduced to white deserts with everyone living in sleek domed cities like Sundari. Then, the Empire came along and purged it. Hard. Post-purge, Mandalore became a ghost world, bombed out, mostly abandoned, and feared to be toxic. The ruins are real, and so are the lingering dangers. Infrastructure is minimal, stability is non-existent, and air is breathable, but the tension in the atmosphere is thick enough to slice. If you're a Mandalorian, the planet holds deep cultural weight. For anyone else, it's a haunted war zone in recovery. Technically livable, but unless you're armored, armed, and emotionally prepared, don't expect a warm welcome, or much warmth at all. Sullust is a volcanic nightmare on the surface. Lava flows, toxic gas clouds, boiling mud, and skies lit by constant eruptions. Basically, it's Mustafar with better infrastructure. The air topside is corrosive and barely breathable, so unless you're wearing a full environmental suit, you're not staying long. But the native Sullustans figured it out. They built vast underground cities inside cooled lava tubes, complete with air filtration and tech comforts. It's not paradise, but it works. Just don't expect a balcony view. During the Galactic Civil War, the Empire used Sullust as an industrial hub thanks to those deep factories. So even underground, the vibes lean more factory overtime than peaceful refuge. In short, Sullust is livable if you stay underground and everything goes right. but step outside without gear and it's instant regret. Definitely bottom tier unless you're a Celestin or really into volcanic claustrophobia. Umbara, the so-called shadow world from the Clone Wars, is permanently wrapped in darkness and fog, like someone put a planet inside a haunted aquarium. Toxic air, minimal visibility, just terrible vibes all around. Humans need full breathing gear just to walk around. You'll find yourself stumbling through bioluminescent jungles filled with floating creatures and aggressive native tech. The Umbarans themselves don't help, not big fans of outsiders and very, very well armed. In saying that, it was also the site of one of the Clone Wars' ugliest campaigns, so there's a good chance the place is still littered with deadly leftovers. Unless you are an Umbaran, Umbara is basically an unending night full of oxygen problems, creepy fauna, and highly advanced locals who'd rather you leave, feet first. Definitely not the best place to set up shop. Saleucami is one of those you could live here, but why would you planets. Seen briefly in Revenge of the Sith and more in the Clone Wars, it's a mix of dry, barren desert and scattered swampy oases. Think moist Tatooine with less charm and more mud. It's not totally lifeless. There are farms, wetlands, and even the odd clone deserter living off-grid. If you find the right patch of land, you could make it work, assuming you don't mind extreme heat, isolation, and the occasional giant bug or swamp lizard showing up uninvited. There's little infrastructure, not much trade, and definitely no nightlife unless you're into watching moisture evaporate. You'll be growing your own food, fixing your own gear, and sweating constantly. Saleucami isn't trying to kill you exactly, but it's not trying to help either. It's survivable, but probably not too comfortable. Ryloth, homeworld of the Twi'leks, is a planet of environmental extremes. One half is a sun-scorched desert wasteland, the other a frozen void. Life only clings to the narrow twilight band in between, where it's slightly less deadly. The terrain is rocky, dry, and filled with underground dwellings designed to keep the heat and cold at bay. Even then, survival isn't easy. The native Lilacs, giant, predatory cave monsters, don't exactly make great neighbors. The Twi'leks have adapted over generations, but outsiders will find it harsh and unforgiving. And that's before you factor in the political history, occupation by the Separatists, then the Empire, and constant conflict in between. Slavery, exploitation, and rebellion have all been part of daily life. Ryloth is survivable if you're tough, resourceful, and community-minded. Jakku is what happens when you take Tatooine and strip out the charm, the cantinas, and any real reason to stay. First seen in The Force Awakens, it's a scorching, remote desert world covered in wreckage from a massive post-Endor battle. Giant starship corpses litter the dunes, and most locals survive by scavenging whatever the sand hasn't buried yet. The environment is incredibly brutal, blistering hot by day, freezing at night, and almost no access to clean water or food. Nima Outpost is the only real civilization, and it's basically one step above a junk market run by Unka Plut, a guy whose customer service style involves food rations and threats. You've also got bandits, steel peckers, and massive underground monsters to worry about. Rey survived here, yes, but it wasn't exactly thriving. More like barely getting by with her staff and trauma. Unless you're obsessed with rusted Imperial wrecks or living alone in a desert hole, Jakku is one of the last places you'd want to be. Pasaana is a remote desert world in the Expansion region, best known for its vibrant Festival of the Ancestors, an enormous celebration held once every 42 years. The native Aki are peaceful, rhythmic, and welcoming, living in scattered villages across a harsh but striking landscape of dunes, mesas, and black sand valleys. The climate is arid but breathable, and while there are freshwater aquifers and some farming via evaporators, it's a tough environment to thrive in. Sarlaccs, sinkholes, and giant subterranean creatures keep visitors on their toes, and amenities are virtually non-existent. No hotels, no cities, just dust, music, and bonfires. It's a beautiful, culturally rich place with serious off-the-grid energy. Is it livable? Sure, if you're tough, self-reliant, and okay with sand in everything. Speaking of sand, Tatooine is the galaxy's favorite desert nightmare, featured in just about everything from A New Hope to The Mandalorian. With twin suns and endless dunes, it's hot, dry, and unforgiving. Basically a sand-blasted oven with attitude. Life here means farming moisture, yes, that's a real job, dodging Tusken Raiders, and praying you don't end up on the wrong side of a Hutt's business deal. Sandstorms are brutal, water is precious, and economic options range from subsistence living to working for crime syndicates. That said, it is survivable. The air's breathable, the gravity's normal, and the towns, Mos Eisley, Mos Espa, offer just enough infrastructure to scrape by. You might even catch a nice sunset, if the crate dragons don't eat you first. Tatooine is rough, lawless, and sunburnt beyond belief. But compared to the absolute worst planets in the galaxy, at least you've got a fighting chance. Daiyu, introduced in Obi-Wan Kenobi, is a dense, rain-soaked urban sprawl in the expansion region where every alley feels like a side quest and every neon sign probably hides something illegal. It's technically under Imperial control, but that mostly means the criminals operate openly and efficiently. The atmosphere is breathable and the climate is tolerable if you don't mind constant drizzle. The cityscape is packed, chaotic, and crawling with bounty hunters, off-world scum, and a who's who of shady alien species. Markets sell everything from rare tech to black market body parts, no questions asked. If you're laying low, running from something, or just vibing with urban chaos, Daiyu's got a certain underground appeal. Just don't expect to leave without baggage, literal or emotional. Ord Mantell is your classic, grimy but livable planet, seen in The Bad Batch and name-dropped by Han Solo as a place where bounty hunters hang out. It's got urban sprawl, scrapyards, and just enough working infrastructure to keep the place functional. The atmosphere is breathable, the climate's temperate, and there are actual cities, though they're more rust and concrete than luxury towers. Ord Mantell City is a hub for mercs, smugglers, and people trying not to be found. Law enforcement is selective at best. You could survive here without too much trouble if you're street smart and not squeamish about back alley deals or occasional blast of fire. There's food, shelter, and jobs, just probably not the legal kind. Ord Mantell isn't a nightmare world, but it's not winning any tourism awards either. You go here to disappear, not to settle down with a white picket fence. Ferrix, introduced in Andor, is a tough, no-frills outer rim world where people survive on salvage and sheer willpower. The planet itself is dry, cold, and coated in rust-red dust with barely a tree in sight. It's basically a scrapyard with weather. Locals here make a living by tearing down old ships and repurposing the parts. The work is hard, the conditions are rough, and comfort isn't really on the menu. But the people are incredibly tight-knit. They've got a proud, working-class culture built around community, independence, and giant iron bells to mark major events, because why use a calendar when you've got vibes? Ferrix isn't necessarily welcoming, but it is livable, until the Empire shows up. Once the crackdown begins, things get a lot more dangerous. Surveillance, raids, violence, the whole Imperial starter pack. In the end, Ferrix is a place where you can survive and even thrive if you're tough enough, but it demands a lot and gives very little back. Nevarro, featured in The Mandalorian, started out as a scorched volcanic world best known for its black sand, lava flows, and high bounty hunter population. Picture Mordor with more blasters. The terrain is harsh, rocky, dry, and definitely unstable in places. Lava can show up uninvited and the local wildlife occasionally crawls out of it. That said, the air's breathable and the main settlement, Navarro City, has gone from criminal hotspot to up-and-coming trade town thanks to a post-Empire glow-up under Greef Karga. Infrastructure's been rebuilt, schools exist, and you can walk down the street without getting ambushed most of the time. It's still a hot, volatile planet, but now it's one where you could feasibly own property. So yeah, Navarro is literally built on lava, but with a strong AC unit and some street smarts, it's not a bad place to settle, assuming you don't mind the ground occasionally trying to kill you. Kashyyyk, the Wookiee homeworld, is a towering jungle world of colossal rocher trees and endless green. Cities like Kachiro are perched high in the canopy because the forest floor, known as the Shadowlands, is basically a death trap wrapped in vines. For Wookiees, this is paradise. For humans though, it's challenging at best. The upper levels are hot, humid, and filled with life. Some of it friendly, some of it very much not. Drop down to the forest floor and you're dealing with lethal predators, hostile flora, and pitch black conditions 24/7. Add to that a history of warfare, occupation, and Wookiee enslavement, and you've got a planet that's both physically and politically intense. But if you're tough, respectful, and happen to befriend or fall in love with a Wookiee, life here can be rewarding. Kashyyyk is wild, untamed, and absolutely not beginner friendly. But it is livable as long as you stay out of the shadows and don't pick a fight you can't finish. Aldhani, introduced in Andor, is one of the rare Star Wars planets that's actually kinda nice. Rolling highlands, clear lakes, and wide open skies. If you're into remote mountain living, this place is pretty idyllic. The climate's cool, but not harsh, the air is clean, and the land looks good for herding or low-impact farming. It was once sacred to the native Dani people, who used to gather for celestial events like the Eye of Aldhani, until the Empire showed up, displaced them, and built a garrison into a dam. Classic. With the Empire presumably out of the picture now, Aldhani has serious resettlement potential. It's quiet, spiritual, and visually stunning, but also remote and carrying the weight of occupation and resistance. For someone looking to disappear into nature with a solid coat and a love of night skies, Aldhani could actually be a decent place to call home. Lah'mu is a remote, rain-soaked planet in the Outer Rim. Lush, volcanic, and about as far off the map as you can get. With its black sand beaches, mineral-rich soil, and eerie green landscape, it looks like the perfect place to disappear. The air is breathable, the land is fertile with a little work, and there's almost no population, fewer than 500 settlers across the entire planet. Farming here is viable, if slow, and water is pulled from the air via evaporators, since the groundwater is undrinkable. It's isolated, sure, but tranquil. It's quiet, peaceful, but so remote that no one can help you when the Empire inevitably finds you. Lah'mu is livable, even beautiful in a windswept, lonely kind of way, but it's not paradise. It's the kind of place you go to hide and hope no one comes looking. Cantonica, home to the infamous casino city of Canto Bight, is what happens when you build a luxury resort on a desert planet and fill it with war profiteers. Located in the corporate sector, this Outer Rim world is dry, hot, and powered entirely by credits, corruption, and an oversized artificial ocean that costs a fortune just to keep from evaporating. On the surface, it looks like paradise to some. Neon lights, high-stakes games, and farthier races under pink sunsets. But behind the glamour, it's built on exploitation. The ultra-rich party in sky lounges, while stable kids sleep in stalls, and the lower levels of the city get damp from all the water being pumped into the fake sea. Cantonica's climate is hostile, but the real threat is social. If you're not rich, you're either invisible or in jail for a parking violation. It's not unlivable, but it is morally dubious. Great for a weekend getaway if you're loaded, a nightmare if you're not. Batuu, featured in Thrawn Alliances and Galaxy's Edge lore, is a remote frontier world full of towering petrified tree spires, dense jungle, and that sweet blend of lawlessness and adventure. It's the Outer Rim's version of Off the Grid, a place where people go when they want to disappear, or make deals without too many questions. The climate's warm, the air's clean, and Black Spire Outpost offers the basics. A cantina, a market, some questionable street food. But it's also run by smugglers, hustlers, and the occasional gang, so personal safety is more of a DIY situation. Outside the outpost, the wilderness is beautiful but wild. Tropical forests, winding rivers, and creatures that don't love being disturbed. Still, it's not inherently hostile, just rugged. Batuu is livable if you're independent, adventurous, and okay with the occasional blaster fight over docking space. Not for everyone, but far from the worst. Yavin 4, best known as the Rebel base in A New Hope, is a steamy, overgrown moon orbiting a gas giant. It's all dense rainforest, ancient stone temples, and an atmosphere that says adventure with a hint of mildew. The air is breathable, the ecosystem is thriving, and the rebels managed to build and maintain a full base here, so survival is doable with the right tech. But expect heat, humidity, bugs, and the occasional creature lurking in the underbrush. Culturally, there's a mystic edge too. Those old Massassi temples weren't just set dressing. In Legends, they're tied to ancient Sith history, so if you stick around long enough, the jungle might mess with more than just your allergies. Yavin 4 is livable, remote, and weirdly peaceful until someone builds a Death Star and brings the drama. Ideal for off-grid types who don't mind sweating through their shirt daily. Hosnian Prime had everything going for it. Core world status, gleaming cities, stable government, and the honor of hosting the New Republic Senate. It was cosmopolitan, peaceful, and about as close to space-age comfort as the galaxy gets. The climate was mild, the infrastructure was top tier, and the culture was diverse and thriving. If you lived on Hosnian Prime, odds are you had a decent job, access to advanced medicine, and enjoy a cappuccino while debating policy on a terrace. And then it got vaporized by Starkiller Base. So yes, it was extremely livable, right up until the moment it got turned into a cautionary tale. Great while it lasted. Emphasis on lasted. Aegin Kloss is a lush jungle moon tucked away in the Outer Rim, best known as the Resistance's final base in the Rise of Skywalker. It's remote, green, and humid, with just enough natural resources to keep you alive, if not exactly cozy. The terrain is all dense forest and undergrowth, with no settlements, no roads, and no infrastructure beyond what you haul in or build yourself. It's peaceful, sure, but also completely off-grid. Think of something like a survival camp, not a suburban escape. The Resistance managed to stay hidden here, and Leia even trained with Luke in the area, so it's clearly usable if you've got gear and grit. There's no sign of major predators, and the moon's isolation makes it ideal for those wanting to disappear. Aegin Kloss is livable for the self-reliant and off-the-radar crowd. For everyone else, it's paradise with no plumbing. Mon Cala, also known as Duck, is an ocean planet almost entirely covered in deep, stormy seas. It's the homeworld of the Mon Calamari and Quarren, both aquatic species who've built an advanced society of domed underwater cities and floating platforms. For them, it's paradise. For everyone else, a bit of a logistical puzzle. Humans and other land dwellers can survive here, but only inside pressurized, water-sealed habitats. You'll need diving gear or a permanent ticket to the nearest dome. The ocean is beautiful but turbulent, and the weather leans toward constant storms. Mon Cala also has a history of conflict, Clone Wars battles, Imperial crackdowns, and more than a few civil tensions between its native species. That said, it's a cultural and technological powerhouse, especially in shipbuilding. So yes, you can live here technically, just don't forget your wetsuit or your evacuation plan. Corellia is one of the core worlds, famous for cranking out starships and cocky pilots like Han Solo. It's a mix of sprawling industrial cities, shipyards the size of small moons, and the occasional patch of green that somehow survived the smog. For locals, life is livable. Plenty of tech, steady jobs in manufacturing, and access to galactic trade routes. But comfort comes with a layer of grime. Cities like Coronet are gritty, working-class hubs where crime syndicates flourish beneath the surface, and the air probably tastes like melted engine parts. Still, Corellia isn't a war zone, and if you're a mechanic, pilot, or just someone with a dream and a fast ship, it's got opportunity. Just don't expect peace and quiet. Corellia's livable, industrial, and fast-paced. Perfect for the bold, not so much for the calm. Lothal, seen in Star Wars Rebels and Ahsoka, is a modest Outer Rim world covered in wide open grasslands, gentle hills, and the occasional city that looks like it was built on a budget. It's the kind of place where you can see the horizon in every direction and not much else. The air's clean, the land's farmable, and the climate is mild. It's a naturally livable planet, if a bit quiet. During the Empire's occupation, things took a dark turn. Oppression, poverty, and heavy industrial mining left their mark. But now, with the Empire gone, Lothal is slowly healing. It's not flashy, but it's a good place for a fresh start. If you're into simple living, open skies, and rebuilding something meaningful, Lothal's got promise. Just don't expect nightlife unless you count watching Lothcats chase fireflies. Scarif looks like a dream vacation spot. Crystal clear waters, tropical islands, and white sand beaches. But during the Imperial era, this Outer Rim world became the galaxy's most heavily guarded secret. Beneath its beauty lay the Empire's top military research complex, housing Project Stardust, the Death Star. The entire planet was wrapped in a planetary shield, with access granted only through a single shield gate station. Star Destroyers parked in orbit like bouncers at a very deadly beach club. At the heart of it all stood the Citadel Tower, a sleek monolith storing data vaults full of classified horrors. Scarif's beaches weren't for sunbathing, they were for the front lines of a desperate rebel assault. The Battle of Scarif ended with a transmission that would spark hope and a super laser blast that erased the entire facility. Idyllic? Sure, but Scarif was less vacation and more classified until vaporized. Niamos, introduced in Andor, is a Star Wars planet that looks pretty nice. It's all beachside cities, neon lights, and ocean views. Basically the galaxy's version of a tropical resort town. The climate's warm, the water's calm, and the local economy seems built for tourism, hiding out, or both. It's the kind of place you'd go to forget your problems or your identity. That said, it's not totally carefree. During the Empire's reign, Niamos was still under Imperial control, and you could get arrested for walking down the beach looking suspicious. Just ask Cassian Andor. So, while the surface screams vacation, the system still watches. Still, if you keep a low profile, Niamos is one of the most livable spots in the galaxy. Bring sunscreen and maybe a fake ID. Sorgan, seen in The Mandalorian, is one of the few places in the galaxy where you might actually be able to relax. It's a green, swampy Outer Rim world filled with wetlands, forests, and quiet fishing villages where people brew spotchka and mind their own business. The tech level is low, don't expect hospitals or HoloNet access, but the environment is fertile, the pace is slow, and the drama is minimal. No empire, no syndicates, just the occasional krill harvest and maybe a bandit raid, which, to be fair, got sorted out pretty quickly. If you're into quiet living, self-reliant, and the kind of community where everyone knows your name and your fishing schedule, Sorgan is about as cozy as the Star Wars galaxy gets. Just bring boots, it's pretty swampy out there. Takodana is a lush, temperate planet filled with forests, hills, and serene lakes. Basically a vacation spot that also happens to have Maz Kanata's 1,000-year-old castle at its heart. It's not aligned with any major power, which makes it a favorite hangout for smugglers, travels, and the mildly mysterious. The atmosphere is clean, the climate's pleasant, and there's zero industry to ruin the scenery. You won't find big cities or spaceports here, but if you're okay with nature walks and a cantina full of bounty hunters, it's not a bad trade-off. Yes, it was attacked by the First Order once, but that's more of a footnote than a daily concern. Most of the time, Takodana is peaceful, neutral, and surprisingly livable. A great pick for anyone looking to stay off the grid with a good drink and some weird company. The forest moon of Endor is basically one giant national park with a few surprises. Covered in towering trees and crystal clear lakes, it's as Earth-like as most of Star Wars gets. Think cottagecore but with spears and gliders. The climate's mild, the air is clean, and food and water are plentiful if you're willing to forage or trade with the locals. Speaking of which, the Ewoks might look cuddly, but they're smart, resourceful, and very capable of dropping a stormtrooper with a log trap. Be respectful, and they'll probably share their stew. There's no real infrastructure, no cities, no tech, no internet, but if you're after peace, nature, and the occasional Ewok festival, Endor is a solid retreat from the chaos of the galaxy. Just don't land near any suspicious Imperial ruins. Coruscant is the beating heart of the galaxy, an ecomenopolis where every inch of the planet is covered in city. From Senate halls and Jedi temples to neon-lit nightlife and shady alleyways 100 levels down, it's got everything and everyone. If you're rich or well-connected, Coruscant is a dream. Climate-controlled apartments, speeder taxis, endless entertainment, and access to the galaxy's best tech, culture, and politics. Take a few elevators down and you'll find crime, poverty, and smog so thick it might qualify as a life form. It's crowded, noisy, and occasionally targeted by galactic super weapons, but if you can handle the chaos and you have a bit of cash to splash, Coruscant is one of the most livable places out there, especially for those who thrive in big city energy. Just make sure you stay above level 1313 if you value your belongings or your life. Home to Mon Mothma and the first capital of the New Republic, Chandrila is a serene core world known for its rolling hills, clear oceans, and a population that prefers open debate to open conflict. The climate is temperate, the scenery is postcard worthy, and the culture values education, democracy, and the arts. It's the kind of place where you'd raise a family, attend a civic forum, then take a quiet walk by the sea. Yes, politics can get tense, especially when you're hosting the capital of a new galactic government, but compared to planets constantly on fire or under siege, Chandrila is basically paradise. If you're looking for peace, prosperity, and zero crate dragons, this one's top tier. Alderaan was the crown jewel of the core worlds. Mountains, forests, plains, and a culture built around peace, diplomacy, and the arts. It was home to Princess Leia and the House of Organa, and had a strict anti-weapons stance, which unfortunately didn't stop it from being targeted by the Death Star. Before its destruction, Alderaan had everything: a mild climate, stunning landscapes, high education, and political stability. It was the kind of place where you could live in a solar-powered villa, sip wine under snowy peaks, and argue philosophy without worrying about blaster fire. It wasn't just livable, it was ideal. Clean air, enlightened government, no war zones, and actual forests that hadn't been strip-mined by the Empire. Alderaan, flawless, unforgettable, and now, space dust. Naboo is about as close to paradise as the Star Wars galaxy gets. Picture rolling meadows, glassy lakes, waterfalls, and Renaissance-style cities built into the hills. It's home to both the elegant Naboo humans and the underwater Gungan society, who somehow coexist in relative peace despite the occasional awkward diplomatic moment. The climate is temperate, the ecosystems are thriving, and the architecture is basically art you can live in. Culturally, Naboo values education, the arts, and public service with a benevolent monarchy that, somehow, actually works. It has abundant natural resources, minimal crime, and no signs of dystopia. Honestly, if you had to pick a planet to retire on, this one checks nearly every box. The only downside? It gave the galaxy Sheev Palpatine. But hey, even paradise has its skeletons. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to let us know in the comment section below which Star Wars planet you would live in and why. I'm super interested in hearing what everybody thinks and what your guys' lists look like. Remember, this is only our opinion, so make sure you let us know yours in the comment section below and which changes you would implement if you were the one creating the list. Once again, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.